Hey everyone, Ollie here. So I've been using the Pixel 6 Pro for the past 2 weeks now. I am primarily an iPhone user. It's what I've been using for the past 2 years. So I'm naturally going to make a lot of comparisons to the iPhone 13 Pro in this video. The Pixel 6 Pro is definitely an interesting phone. It does some things very, very well, but it also has some major issues which I'll be sharing in this video. The design. So I love the look of this. I love the two-tone color combo. I think it looks awesome on this Stormy Black model. It's odd that they called it Stormy Black though, considering it's 2 shades of grey, but I'm not complaining. The 2 shades of grey look awesome. I'm also a huge fan of the camera bar. It's a bold design move and looks nothing like any other phone. I also think it looks cleaner and more organised compared to something like the iPhone 13 Pro. Overall, the back of the phone looks awesome, and I'm glad Google made the sort of bold design move that they did to get the look of this phone. My main complaint though with the design of this phone is that it's really slippery. The glass back and the sort of rounded corners really just make it feel like it's going to slip out of my hand constantly. I feel always worried that I'm going to drop it and break it or something. I feel like this phone is definitely designed for a case. It just feels a lot more comfortable in a case, especially with the size of it. I'd say I have pretty average sized hands, but even still, I just feel like it's constantly just slipping out of my hand. The screen. The 6.7 inch screen is great, very high resolution, and the 120Hz is really good, really nice to see. It looks and feels super silky. The screen is a Corning Gorilla Glass Victus, which is the toughest Gorilla Glass yet. Google are saying that it's 2 times better at scratch resistance compared to the previous Pixel 5 and the Pixel 4. It also has the waterfall edges. I think it looks really cool, the waterfall edges, it's nice, but I actually don't like them at all. When you're using the device, the edges are dark and there is some color shift. It's actually quite annoying, and I wish it was a simple flat screen. I do like the always on lock screen option. Being able to see the time and notifications whenever I glance over without having to pick up the phone is great. The under-screen fingerprint sensor is nice as well, but this one is just way too slow. There's noticeable delay between putting your thumb on the fingerprint sensor and having it unlock. It's just annoying and really ruins the flow of the device, getting into the device, just being able to use it. I feel like Touch ID on my Mac has very much spoiled me. Another issue is the random brightness changes with the screen, which is really frustrating. Sometimes when using the phone, it just seems to dim or brighten for no apparent reason. My lighting, my environment hasn't changed, but sometimes it just can't seem to work out what brightness it should be. It doesn't happen all the time, but it definitely happens often enough for it to be annoying. The camera. So of course, one of the most anticipated features of the new Pixels are their cameras. Pixels are meant to be known for their amazing camera quality, so the expectations are high. This phone has a 50 megapixel main camera, a 48 megapixel telephoto camera, and a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. Google even advertises that the 50 megapixel main sensor is able to take in 150% more light compared to the Pixel 5, which is definitely significant. To make this more quantifiable for you at home, I've taken many different sample photos with these cameras as well as with the iPhone 13 Pro for comparison. All of these photos are unedited and they're straight out of the camera. So the standard wide lens. When using the standard wide camera, the shots are very clean as expected. A good amount of detail, and it does a good job of retaining the highlights and the shadows. When compared to the iPhone, the Pixel 6 Pro shots are a bit flatter and less contrasty. You can tell when looking at the van in this picture, you can see how much more contrasty the van looks. I'd actually argue that the Pixel 6 Pro does a better job of representing what the eye sees in terms of contrast. The iPhone might look better, but you can always add contrast and saturation later on. Here's another wide shot, and this one definitely does a really good job of showing the different image profiles between the two images from the two different devices. You can see there's a bit more saturation and contrast in the iPhone shot. When it comes to sharpness, I actually think they're both very similar. Most people will not see a difference. I've also found the Pixel images to be a bit cooler looking compared to the iPhone. Portrait shots. So when using portrait mode, I found the Pixel's background blur just a bit too aggressive. It also seems a bit over sharpened compared to the iPhone, or maybe the iPhone shot is intentionally softer because it's in portrait mode. But I also do like the colors from the iPhone more. Overall, I think the iPhone does better here. Night mode. So shooting low light shots on the Pixel 6 Pro is pretty incredible, and it's noticeably better than the iPhone. I found the Pixel makes low light pictures appear much brighter and they seem to retain quite a bit more detail as well. It just looks more natural compared to the iPhone. The ultra wide. So the ultra wide is 0.7 times on the Pixel and 0.5 times on the iPhone. So the iPhone shots are a bit wider. It's not a huge difference, but it's definitely noticeable. I like the wider angle that you can get on the iPhone, but the shots are not as clean and they do look over sharpened compared to the Pixel. The telephoto. So the telephoto lens on the Pixel is 4 times, whilst the iPhone is 3 times. And you can see the difference here in how the Pixel is a bit more zoomed in. I really like the telephoto on the Pixel and I actually prefer it over the iPhone. I also found the images from the iPhone seemed a bit over sharpened again compared to the Pixel. The Pixel looks more natural here when looking at highlights, shadows, contrast and saturation. The iPhone also seemed to just make the image a bit too cool for some odd reason. The selfie cam. So the selfie cam is good enough, I guess. Both phones render colours a little bit differently, but I actually like both of them. For my skin tones, I think they both do an okay job. The Pixel is a little bit on the red side and it does make my skin look a bit smoother as well. There is no macro mode though, and to be honest, I haven't really missed it. You know, macro mode is fun when you first start using it, start trying it out, but I really don't miss it, so I don't think it's a big deal that it's missing from the Pixel 6 Pro. Video. So video on the Pixel is good, but it's still not as good as the iPhone. The iPhone just looks better overall, more clarity and contrast. The stabilization is also very good on both, but I think the iPhone still edges it. iPhones are just known for their incredible video quality and I don't think the Pixel can match it this time round. Overall, I think the differences between the cameras is very, very small, to be honest. I think you're still going to get amazing pictures using the Pixel 6 Pro, and it always amazes me that a phone like this can just fit in your pocket. You know, you have all these different cameras, all these different sort of image capabilities all in your pocket. The only part where I think the iPhone really wins here is in the video department. If you're someone who likes to take a lot of videos, then you most likely will be better off with an iPhone. But even then, the Pixel 6 Pro will not disappoint. The processor. So another highly anticipated feature of these new Pixels is their new Google designed chipset, Tensor. Google advertised this to be a consolidation of their most advanced on-device AI, their best-in-class computational photography, and their most secure chip ever, all whilst giving a huge bump of 80% more speed and performance to the user. During my time using the phone, I've not had any issues with the speed. It feels fast enough. Flagships these days are so fast that I feel like you're really not going to be able to tell a big difference anyway. The only issue I have is with that fingerprint sensor. As I mentioned earlier, I just wish it was faster. Considering the chip that is in this device, I would have expected it to be much faster as well. To be honest, I don't think there is actually much else to say about the chip other than getting a bit more technical. But with my reviews and stuff, I don't really want to get too technical because I feel like that's just a bit boring. No one really cares too much about the technical stuff unless you're really, really into it. I try to make my reviews sort of easy for anyone and everyone to understand. But it's great to see Google going in this direction. Apple have been doing it for a while with their own chips. Having that tight integration with hardware and software just gives you a better overall experience. So hopefully, as Google keep developing their chip, keep developing the Pixel line of phones, the overall experience for the end user will be much better. Battery life. So this is a tricky one to answer because from looking at reviews and from looking at other people, what they've posted online, everyone seems to be getting a different experience. Some people are experiencing very bad battery life, whilst others are experiencing very good battery life. I've been experiencing very good battery life with the Pixel 6 Pro. I can easily get 2 days out of it with pretty moderate use. I'm not a heavy user, but I think if you were a heavy user, you should be able to get a day of usage out of it, no problem. There's also an extreme battery saver mode, so if you really want to get the most out of the battery, you can put it into that mode as well. And another great feature that Google have added is the battery share feature, so you can actually use the back of the phone to charge other devices wirelessly, which is a really nice feature to see, and it's something I wish that the iPhone had. The speakers. So the speakers on it are really good, but there is one issue, and that the stereo experience when you're watching videos, listening to music and whatever else, just isn't equal. The bottom speaker, the speaker coming out the bottom of the phone, is definitely noticeably louder compared to the top speaker. So it does sound a bit off and it's really not the best stereo experience. The software. So for those who are very long time followers of the channel, will already know that I actually started on Android. Android was my OS, my first sort of smartphone OS, you could say. And it's where I basically began my journey into sort of the interest of smartphones and tech in general. Even though I use an iPhone, I'm actually quite a big fan of Android, especially with how much you can do with Android. It's just not as locked down as iOS. And two of the biggest features for me is being able to sideload apps and customize the UI just to how I like. I wish you could do those on iOS. Considering that I hadn't used an Android phone for 2 years now, I really didn't have any issue moving from my iPhone to the Pixel 6. Easy to get around the UI and really not much issue at all. If you're someone who's maybe considering the jump, yeah, I feel like it's going to be very easy. The learning curve is so little. I think my only complaint would be with the default system font. This is just a small complaint, just a UI complaint. But Roboto, the font that they use, I actually think is quite ugly and I wish you could change it. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to change it other than if you sort of get into hacking your phone and putting a ROM on it or whatever else. But again, like that's just a bit too much. I wish there was an easy way to change it. Weird issues. So there have been a fair number of issues that I've come across from other Pixel 6 Pro owners online, but there's two major ones that I have here. The first one is phantom calling. I personally haven't experienced this, but there's quite a number of Reddit users that are reporting their phone is phantom calling people randomly in their contact list, sometimes doing it 2 or 3 times in a day, which is just pretty insane and something that, yeah, I feel like just shouldn't be happening. Very weird software bug there, and hopefully Google fixes that. The second issue is with the fingerprint scanner not working if you let the phone battery die. How does that make any sense? Again, reported by quite a number of Reddit users. But that's just weird, and apparently the only way to get the fingerprint sensor working again is to completely factory reset your device, which definitely isn't on. I know sometimes these issues can fall through the cracks. It definitely happens with any manufacturer, but with the number of people complaining about them, I feel like, yeah, these are quite major issues that Google will hopefully get sorted. The price. So one very important factor to consider here is that the Pixel 6 Pro only goes for $899, which I actually think is actually a very good price for a flagship device, especially when you compare it to the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which I think is the best sort of competitor. That goes for $1099. That's a $200 difference, and that $200 difference doesn't really get you too much difference considering the phones are capable of pretty much exactly the same thing. If money is a deciding factor, I would recommend the Pixel 6 Pro. If the $200 difference isn't a big deal, then it really comes down to what OS you prefer. The Pixel 6 Pro really is an incredible phone. It's a true flagship device and it will not disappoint as long as most people don't encounter the issues that I brought up in this video. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this review. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter and subscribe for more.